Well, hello folks. Welcome back to week 5, Live with your Lobbyist. I am broadcasting to you at the end of the 5th week. It's hard to believe it's already February. A lot is in transition at the legislature, I would say. I think we are getting to the point where we're about to see a lot more bills coming out. We've had a lot of bills seen a lot of bills this week and expect to see more next week. So while I'm waiting for a few people to join, I just wanted to share that with you and also let you know that I'll talk about a few of the things that we worked on this week, specifically that had hearings, and give you a little preview for next week, as well as a little overview of what to expect from the rest of the session. So as many of you know, the session's been off to a little bit slower start than in some years, due largely to the fact that there's been some challenges with technology and just the nature of it being a hybrid session for the first time ever. But like I've said many times in the past, the legislative staff and people working at the Capitol are doing their best to work through this. The legislators themselves are adapting, and we lobbyists are doing our best to adapt to that as well and continue to represent you in the process. So, hi Ricky, thank you for joining. I see we've got 5 people on now. So I'll just jump right in. I will remind you of 2 things. One, if you have a question throughout this, please type it into the comments. I should be able to see it pop up. And even if I don't, we'll look back at this later and answer your questions via text. Another thing is, if you don't already know this, we have a Instagram page as well, and Rachel is actually broadcasting on it live right now as well. Hi Tyler, hi George, thanks for tuning in. And if I miss giving you a shout out when I see you sign out, it's not intentional. Sometimes I'm just yammering on, or they don't always show up on the feed, but I'll try to catch up with that as well as possible. So a couple things to mention from this week. We've talked about it a little bit before, but House Bill 14, which is the bonding bill, the long-range funding bill for major building projects, has been started through the process, but it had the opportunity for public comment this week. This is a bill that we support because it has 3 very important things in it. One is some funding for Montana Ag Experiment Station upgrades, the Wool Lab, and also the Veterinary Diagnostic Lab. So we were able to offer support on those 3 projects this week, specifically talking about how important they are to the long-range success of Montana agriculture. It's very encouraging to see them included in this bill because it really shows the recognition of how important agriculture is to our state and the value in funding those very needed projects. So we really appreciate those being included. I'm excited to share with you that several farmers and ranchers from throughout the state tuned in to offer their support for that as well, including our very own J.M. Peck, our Young Farmer and Rancher Committee chairman. So thank you, JM, for doing that. It was wonderful to have direct input from ranchers and farmers across the state, either in person or on the Zoom call. I know the legislators really appreciate that. Hi, Elise. And you know, on that note, I would just say that there is going to be a lot of opportunity for folks to do that. I may be reaching out to some of you to ask you if you want to get involved in some bills that are coming up next week. But always, if there is a bill that you are wanting to testify on, wanting to share your input on, there is the opportunity to do that now. Just go right to the legislative website, leg.mt.gov. Right in the middle of the page, there's a tab that says register to testify. You go through that process. You have to do it by noon the previous day, but then you'll be sent a link and be able to join the meeting virtually. So Thank you for joining us, Elise. I'm glad that you enjoy the updates, and we appreciate you watching. So that was one bill. Exciting to get that off on a good fit. House Bill 14 off to a great start. We sure hope to see that over the finish line because these are really important projects, and things, especially like the veterinary diagnostic lab, have been a topic of discussion for several sessions now, and it is going to be a great thing for us to move that across the finish line. I really feel positive about it, especially that project, because the Department of Livestock has done a lot of work to come up with a solution on how to build a new lab that will continue to provide the services that ranchers in this state need, and also has come to the table with part of our own funding, and that comes from your per capita dollars. So this is partially funded by us, the ranchers and farmers, and hopefully by some bonding that the state will authorize. So moving on from there, I will also highlight one really exciting part of the week. We got to support the confirmation of Director of Department of Agriculture, Mike Foster. He had his hearing Thursday in Senate Ag and was supported by many in the ag community. Those of us at Montana Farm Bureau are very excited to see him at the helm of that very important agency. Mike is a proven administrator. He really has earned the respect of farmers and ranchers during his time as the FSA state director because of his genuine interest in helping us with our concerns, his responsiveness to questions, inquiries, all those things. And he's got vast amounts of legislative experience from all sides, and is just going to do a great job advocating for agriculture in the legislature as well as on the national level. So we're very excited and want to congratulate Director Foster and look forward to the Senate Ag Committee passing that and having him fully confirmed. So congratulations again, Director Foster. Then I'll pause and see if there's any questions. Thanks for tuning in, Clayton, Chastity. I'll just move right into another bill that I want to give you some clarity on. It's House Bill 261, which is a bill that would create would put before the voters a constitutional referendum, which would do a variety of things. One, it would put in our Constitution, if passed, that our state only recognizes 3 types of taxes: property tax, income tax, and sales tax. As you know, we currently do not have a sales tax, and actually our Constitution limits the percentage of, it limits the amount of sales tax that could be levied if we were to get a sales tax. What's interesting about putting in statute that we would only recognize, or putting in the Constitution that we would only recognize those 3 types, is that there are other types of revenue sources that the state currently has. So there's some question about whether or not those are truly inclusive enough to fully quantify how our state raises its funds. Anyways, beyond that, the next thing this referendum would do is say that we can only implement 2 of the 3 types of taxes at once. The thing that we're facing in this state right now is that we predominantly rely on income tax to fund state government and property tax to fund local government. And those are our 2 main sources of revenue as a state right now. Hi, Randy. Hi, Christina. Hi, Ken and Cindy. We only have those 2 types enacted right now. I think the thinking behind this is that we want to protect taxpayers from not having a new type of tax levied on top of those 2. And while that is a noble cause, what our analysis is that by putting this in the Constitution, it will actually limit our ability to offset some of those taxes in the future. Farmers and ranchers obviously pay income tax and property tax, but property tax is probably the most onerous of them. I mean, all of you may have slightly different, well, everyone will have a slightly different makeup there, but as landowners, property tax is very heavy on farmers and ranchers. And as our economy changes and we shift to more types of e-commerce and things like that, there are fewer businesses that are paying more property tax, including farmers and ranchers. So we're looking for property tax relief, and we don't want to put anything into the Constitution that will hamper our ability to find some sort of relief for property tax in the future, which is why we opposed House Bill 261. It did not have any proponents. It had a lot of opponents, and so we hoped that it will not advance past the House Judiciary Committee, but we will see. Another interesting point to throw out there is that one thing that I wanted to make the case on to them is, 50 years ago when the legislature was setting up our current tax system, we were relying a lot on natural resource tax, which is property tax, and had no way to foresee what would come, would become of our economy, and how we would be shifting further away from natural resource development and more to this online retail type of situation. So likewise, it's probably pretty hard for us to guess what things are going to look like economy-wise exactly in the next 10, 15, 20, 100 years. And I would hate to see a constitutional referendum tie the hands of future legislatures who would seek to make the tax system more fair, more broad-based, and less onerous on ranchers and farmers. So that is why we oppose House Bill 261. Just wanted to give you a little heads up too that next week is looking to be a very busy week. We have a lot of bills coming out that we knew were in the process, and some that we didn't know were in the process, of course, that are out of drafting, that have been turned over to the sponsor and are in the works of being scheduled to committee hearings. A lot of people like to speculate. They always say, oh my goodness, there's all of these bill draft requests out there. The dam is going to break, and they think they know exactly when that dam's going to break. I try not to speculate about that because then things always change, but it does appear that next week is the week when we will start seeing a lot of those things roll out. We know that House Ag already has a very full schedule for Tuesday afternoon, 3 bills in there that have come over from the Senate side. We know that there's a lot filling up the schedule right now. And in addition to some of those bills, we know that we're gonna start seeing bills limiting the establishment, at least probably 2, with regard to wild bison, things that we wanna do to be able to protect our members from the establishment of a wild bison herd anywhere in the state or anywhere where they're not wanted in the state. Those will probably be having hearings the end of this week or possibly next week. And additionally, we know that the governor's tax bills are going to be rolling out next week, which is exciting. For those of you who watched the State of the State address, he talked about those somewhat in that address. If you want to go, I'm sure that was recorded, and if you would like to go back and see that, I would encourage it because he did really explain a lot of his priorities for this session. Always very insightful, and it was an exciting thing to watch last week. Losing track of time already. But a few bills to put on your radar for early next week on this arena is House Bill 303, which will be carried by Representative Kastmeyer, and it is a business equipment tax bill, which will actually raise the exemption from $100,000 to $200,000. Obviously, farms and ranches are very equipment intense operations, and so we own a lot of business equipment and we pay tax on that. And so raising that exemption will make it so we pay on slightly less of that property, or of that business equipment property. So we'll pay the tax above the $200,000 value. So that will help us. We'll be supporting that bill. Another one is House Bill 252, which will be carried by Representative Jones, and it will put in place a tax credit for employers who send their employees to school or training in the technical trades, things to help these really important trades like welding, electricians, plumbers, things like that. You might not necessarily think that's directly tied to agriculture, but we utilize these services, and we need more of these types of people trained to be able to provide these really important and difficult and technical professions. There's also, we would mention maybe this could be used for folks who want to get trained in meat processing, which we've seen to be a very important thing. So we'll be supporting that bill as well. And then on the Senate side will be Senate Bill 159, which is an income tax reduction bill. It's a slight reduction in taxes, but we'll be supporting that because we do, farmers and ranchers, like everyone, appreciate an income tax break, even if it lowers the rate from 6.9% to 6.75%, and also and that's on all income over $18,700. So this tax break will apply to many Montanans, and it's not only good for individuals. I believe it will be good for the state, because at least from a farmer and rancher perspective, when there's a few more dollars left in our pockets at the end of the year, that's not just something that's squirreled away. It can't, we like to save. I think we are savers, but there are always needs on farms and ranches, whether it's going out and buying some more posts and some more wire to repair fence, maybe upgrading some equipment, something like that. All of that goes back into our local communities. It doesn't get shipped out of our state. So those tax dollars will be reinvested here in the state, bolstering all of us. So we look forward to those. There'll be other ones coming as well, which I'm still, we're waiting on some text, and I'm going to be doing some evaluation on those, but you'll be hearing more from us on those next week, or our members will be getting you a lot more details. So I haven't seen any questions pop up, and I've rambled on for much longer than I intended to do. So I'm kind of thinking about wrapping up now, unless any of you have any questions. Like I said, there's going to be a lot of bills next week and the week following. The transmittal deadline is now in that first week of March. The legislature has been saving Saturdays so that they're able to extend the transmittal deadline a bit without costing taxpayers anymore, because if it's not a working day, it's not counted against the legislative clock. So there's a little bit more time, but we're getting down to the wire now. February is a short month, and there's a lot of bill draft requests out there that need to be dropped in if they're gonna get through the process by that deadline. So we expect to see a lot of new legislation introduced next week and the week following. Well, that was my minute warning to let you know that I'm about to sign off. I haven't seen any other questions here. You can see that Laura is helping me by popping some of the bill links into the comments. So if you want to look at those specifically, you can sure check that out. Read the fiscal notes, see what they're all about. We look forward to visiting with you next week and being in touch with you, because there's going to be a lot to do. So thanks a lot, and have a great weekend. Stay warm. I hear it's getting cold across the state. So hopefully you're all going to be able to stay in your feed and pickup or your heated shop and keep your livestock warm and all of that. And hope you just have a great weekend. Thank you. Thanks for tuning in, Bill. Thank you, Christina. We'll see you soon.